Hi, I'm Debbie from Simply Special Crafts. Today we're going to look at a Very Merry Christmas Deco-Large collection and the Very Merry Christmas Deco-Large inserts and paper pack. In order to get all of the cards you'll see in today's video, you would need both of these items. The Very Merry Christmas Designer Deco-Large collection by Hunkydory is typical of Hunkydory card kits in that you get die-cut pieces and cardstock, but it's a little different than their normal topper sets in that this set features lots of, every set features layering, and Hunkydory includes in the deluxe kit, the luxury style kit, the full luxury kit, you get 12 topper sets and you get 2 of each. They say that will make 24 cards. I'm going to show you how you can make many, many, many more cards if you choose to do that. We'll take a look at layering them all in one or layering them as multiple cards to each topper set. Now, when you're making this, again, you get 12 different topper sets with this kit, and you get 2 of each topper set. This is the papers and inserts that goes with that. And in the demonstrations I'm going to show you today, I used an entire pack. I have nothing but tiny scraps left from making one of the 2 sets of 12. Each insert comes with just one insert sheet, and each insert or each of the items in the paper pack has one paper printed front and back that matches each theme. So if you're going to make the maximum number of cards, as we will in this video, you're going to need 1 luxury kit and 2 of these inserts and paper packs. I strongly recommend that, or you won't have enough paper to finish all of the cards we're going to talk about. As always, there's a few other supplies that I brought into the video. I used Stunning Silver Mary, I used Rich Gold Mary, and I used lots of Snowfall Acetate. Also from Hunkydory, I used the 2017 Sentiments book. Not real generously in this, but I did use a few. I used the 6x6 centerfold kit cards from Hunkydory. I used, then you've seen this a few times now, I love these little sprigs in this, pine cones and, what's it called? Wild Branches and Pine Cones die from Ultimate Crafts. This is a great price in our store, and it's a very useful little die. I used a few stickers. Primarily I used gold and silver border dazzles, jewel border dazzles from Hot Off the Press. I also used some silver jewel dazzles from Hot Off the Press. I used my circle dies from Tattered Lace. I used my Hunkydory Angel Whispers glitter. I used a quickie glue pen. We're still being told by our distributor these will arrive anytime. I do apologize that we've been out of stock. There's a number of good glue pens on the market. This just happens to be the one we use. I used my Tattered Lace detail glue with a detail tip. I used the best glue ever. I used Nouveau Jewel Drops in the strawberry that we've used before, and this time I also added some in the lime. I think it's called lime. Jewel Drops, key lime. And I used lots and lots and lots of foam squares. Let's get started. I missed one. I also used a variety of different snowflake dies. One of the dies I wanted to profile in today's video is this wonderful little mini snowflakes die by Dee's Distinctive. The fun thing about this is that all the snowflakes are in a single piece, so you get to cut, I don't even know how many snowflakes that cuts. 4, 9, 13, 15, 17, 19, 20. You get 20 snowflakes in a pass, which is a whole lot faster than cutting them 1 or 2 or 3 at a time. Okay, let's start with this one. This is called a Cozy Christmas, and this is what I'm showing you here is the base layer. So with these single packs, if you're buying the singles, you'll see that you actually get 2 large sheets and 1 half sheet. That's normal. This is called the base layer, and this is the one that Hunkydory assumes that you're going to build everything up on this base piece. So on this base sheet, we have 1 good size punch out. Then we have 1 greeting, we have 2 borders. As is typical of Hunkydory, you get this beautiful 350 GSM cardstock. We've got some nice borders here, a really nice neutral center, and we've got this fabulous cozy scene in the living room. And these are all of our layering pieces. Now, what I'm going to do here first, I think, is go ahead and show you how I would make decisions about how to layer these different places. So let's start with that. So if I'm layering up this set, the first thing I would do is try to decide how many cards I'm going to make out of a set. I will tell you that in this demo, I'm going to typically make 3 cards from a set using these materials. Sometimes, however, based on the subject and the number of pieces available, I just decided to make 2. So the first thing I would do is look at how many pieces I have, and one of the determinations as to whether I'm going to make 2 cards or 3 is going to be based on this sheet. If this has a pattern like this, I'm typically going to get 3 cards out of here, and I'm going to distribute my layering pieces 3 ways. If this sheet has just all borders, I'm probably going to get 2 cards out of this set. So I'm going to punch out this one, and this is going to become the base of my first set, of course, because this is my base layer. I'm going to assume that this image here is going to be my second set. And then I'm going to look at my pieces and I'm going to say, do I have something large enough here that it can act as the base to a third set? And the answer is yes. I have this nice big topper here. I can put this in front of a background, and this is going to make a really nice background for a card because it has most of the elements of the decoupage in it, and I can put it up against my own wall piece. This will make a great card standing on its own. So there's my 3 sets. Now I'm going to look at the remainder of my pieces and say, how do I want to layer this up? I have another big tree here. So one of these pieces is going to get this big tree. And there's nothing magical in determining who gets what. Sometimes it's just where I think it's going to look the best, or if it doesn't matter, I just pick one. One of the nice things about the cardstock, we've mentioned this before, is that when Hunkydory prints a piece on card like this to go with a set, typically it's done in the same size. So see there? I can layer that right over the top of that tree, and it looks terrific. Now I'm going to look, and I have at least 3 good-sized dog pictures. I actually have 4, so I'm going to take 1 dog and put it with each set. Notice how I'm pulling these towards the front. The reason I do that is if anything snags, I'd like it to snag on the back and not on the printed front of my card. So when you're popping them out, they tend to be die cut really well, although occasionally you get one that's just a little stubborn. I have this extra one. I'm just going to pick a picture to put it on. I have this background wreath, and somebody is going to get the background wreath. So I'm going to put the background wreath, I think, with this one. I've got this wonderful little poinsettia flower pot here, and I'm going to put that over here. I have more animal pieces. I'm going to put a dog face on this one, and I'm going to put a kitty over here. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just trying to kind of distribute my pieces between the three. And I have my greetings. I'm just going to set those aside for the moment. And then I have just a few little things. Now, what I have left here, often I'll take the little ones and distribute them around. But because these little ones are bows and stars, I'm going to put all of these bows on one of the trees and the star on one of the trees. I'm just going to look at what has less layers to make that decision. So we'll pop those out. And here I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces so far in this one. And in this one I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. And in this one I have 1, 2, 3 pieces. So I think that perhaps I will go ahead and give the bows and stars to this one that only has 3 layering pieces here. So let's pop those out. I'm going to go off camera for a minute while I finish popping out all these little bows and while I start layering things up. I've got my pieces punched and I put a few little foam squares on the back. Note that you want enough foam squares to hold it up steadily and not so many that you're wasting your foam squares. So about that many is good. Now I'm going to start working from the largest pieces to the smallest pieces, and I'm just going to layer up my card. I have noticed that these designs don't always start at the bottom, so I'm going to come up here and match the top of my tree and come down that way. So be sure and get everything in the right spot. So there's our first layer. I'm going to add my second layer, the dog in the bed. There's my foam squares on it. And I'm going to put him here. These foam squares are really forgiving, so as long as you're popping them right back up, you can pull things back up and reposition them without hurting anything. And we have the wreath for the background here. I'll put that on. One of the bows, when I went to punch them out, one of the bows that was still on my sheet was actually a wreath bow, so I decided to use that on this sheet. So my little bow. And then I have the head to the dog. I'm going to layer that right on top. Okay, and this is my first completed image. There's my tree here. I'm going to pop back off camera for a minute. Okay, while we were away, I layered up the remainder of my pieces, and I wanted to show you a little closer on what we ended up with. You look, you'll see this one has the wreath and a bow. It has one large tree piece. It has the dog and the cat and the dog face. I think that looks nice. This one, I actually changed my mind a little bit while I was off camera and I was layering things, and you'll find you'll want to do that sometimes too. This one is, I put the star on the tree here because I didn't have as many pieces as I thought. It has 2 dogs. And this large piece is behind one of the dogs, and it has the flower pot. But you get some nice dimensionality to that. It's got at least 3 layers of building. This one, I actually brought the bows over here because I thought it needed a little extra dimension. And on this one, I have the background, I have my cat, I have my dog, and I have the little bows on the tree. So it's got some nice dimension to it too. If you prefer more dimension, just let me say, if you prefer more dimension, make less cards. That's okay. You can actually make 2 instead of 3, or you can make them all into 1 if you want to. While we were off camera, I also punched out the remainder of my pieces to see what I had to decorate with. Remember to keep these little border clip-offs until you're done, because sometimes those things come in just so handy, and you'll see several examples in today's cards where I've used those border pieces to finish things off. We had our 2 little greetings. I want to bring these back in. These are the pages out of the papers and inserts, and of course we have an insert page that matches our topper set, so we'll use that strictly for inserts. And then we also have this wonderful, very colorful double-sided paper that they provide, and we've got a beautiful image here that can be used for another card. We've got a nice border up here we can use, and we have a nice pattern on the back of that card that we can use. So we have a variety of choices with those. Now they've showed you how to layer those up. Let me just go ahead and show you the cards I've already completed using this set. I'm going to slide these out of the way. Okay, let's see the cards that we actually created. This card came directly from here. I have taken this is an A2 card. I've taken an A2 card. I have covered my card with this piece of cardstock right here. I actually trimmed it off just a little on the bottom so that I can catch the top of that little swag there. I added this trim piece to the side. That's all it needed. It just didn't need any more. And then I used my matching insert inside. Isn't that cute? Next up, let's look at this one. This card is a US A6, a 5 by 6.5. And in this case, I've taken this piece of cardstock right here and covered my card. I added my base piece. I added that pretty little border right off my base sheet piece. That's all it needed. It was done. Added a piece of insert. Now, our customers tend to prefer smaller cards, and as opposed to making larger cards to carry these large verses, in many cases I put the larger verses to the inside of my cards. Next, I used a piece of this paper behind my 3D piece. Actually, yeah, it probably came from right there. And, wait a minute, nope, it didn't. It came from right here. Sorry. This is a 4 by 6 card. I took it right from here. Right from here. And then it wasn't quite wide enough to cover everything, so I used my little trim strip. This was a throwaway piece, remember? And I put it right here to make sure that that had a nice finished edge. And in this case, I thought it needed a little bit more background. So I cut one of the wreaths from here and put it up on some foam tape to create more dimension. Cute. Finally, I covered an A6 card using this piece right here. And I took another one of those wreaths and I put it on the wall here just to add a, kind of a finished touch. I took a piece of border material from my cardstock sheet and added it on the side. And I added just a gold jewel dazzle just to add a little sparkle since these papers and insert sheets aren't foiled. I thought it needed a little bit of sparkle, and didn't that turn out cute? So including the papers and inserts that I have used, we got 4 cards from this set. Okay, this is our next set. This one's called Santa Claus is Coming. This charming scene of Santa at the door. Here's your layering pieces. Here's your cardstock. This is what your front and back double-sided paper looks like. And your insert. Let's take a look at what we made from them. Okay, just going to do these in no particular order here. So we're starting with the papers and inserts sheet. I've taken an A6, US A6 card. I've covered it in gold mirror board. I have cut my insert sheet, or my double-sided paper, down to allow about a 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch border. Then I've covered that in snowfall acetate. I've attached my acetate at the top, and I've used one of my border strips right off of my my base sheet to cover and hide my glue or my tape run for the acetate. I've used a Have a Magical Christmas out of my 2017 topper book, and there's those little sprigs off of that pine cone die. I love those little sprigs in this set because they're just a sweet little added touch, and it was just the right amount to add. Covered it with the matching insert. Actually, this is covered with paper from the back of that paper pack sheet. And I added the Santa Claus is coming to town. Doesn't that look striking against the green? I really like that. Next, we have my layered cards. I have 3 in total. Here's my layer that's done using my border piece. I forgot to say when I was showing my materials that I used that Merry Christmas by Dee's Distinctively. Again, you've seen that lots of times. It's back. I covered a 4x8 card with gold mirror board, added my gold Merry Christmas, added my snowflakes. In this case, they're the ones that are out of the Moonstone snowy window die set or snowy frame set. There's lots of snowflakes that you can use. If we're out of that one, there's lots more choices in the store. And I think that turned out incredibly cute. Once again, you'll notice there's just not a lot of embellishment because these cards don't need it. Next, you'll see a few that aren't lined because even adding the extra papers, I ran out. Okay. In this case, I wanted to use something just kind of fun and interesting for the background. I didn't have to use it, but I chose to use a piece of the tartan plaid, Adorable Scoreable. I'll put that on the supplies list as well. I do believe that's sold out as of today, but I have some on order, and I have one palette here and another one due next week, so it should be in really soon. But you've got that beautiful dimensional work, Santa waving, so cute. And again, I didn't do anything extra, it just didn't need it. This is on a USA 6 card. The nice matching insert. And our final piece. Now this is one, I'm just going to be real honest here. I'm not sure that I love the fact that I had a gap here. And I covered it in yellow to kind of match the window. But I think this is one that if I was doing it again, I might make 2 cards and just keep the background pieces and keep that door, because it really wasn't a replacement for the door. So if I did this one again, I'd probably make 2 cards plus the 1 card that came from the double-sided paper pack. I made 4, but I'd probably make 3 if I did it again. This set's called The Little Shepherd Boy. Oh, it's so beautiful with those stunning colors. My goodness, it's pretty. I love the little sheep looking up to the little lambs. So cute. Here's our layering piece. Here's our cardstock. So we've got a big, beautiful border to work with there. I thought it felt like there was something hiding. Look at this. From the double-sided paper pack. Absolutely gorgeous. And there's our insert. The insert could almost be a card in itself on this one, but it looks really pretty on the inside too. Let's see what we did with them. Here's that double-sided paper. I've covered a US A6, which again is 5 by 6.5 with gold mirror board. I trimmed my image to be slightly smaller than that so my gold would show around the outside. I added Warmest Wishes. I just didn't think it needed anything else because the image was stunning enough to carry the card without adding extra. Sometimes if you put too much on something, you actually take away from it, and the image was just stunning. This one's not lined. Next, here's my layered images. Let's take a look at each one individually first. We'll start with that cardstock piece. Here it is. I didn't think it needed to be a full 4x8 because this piece didn't really have a lot going on with it, so I cut that off there. And in this case I liked the banner, so I put it clear across the top because I could still leave all of this image here and kind of catch the majesty of that. This is on a 4x6, and all I've done is just literally use that corner piece that's been layered up and put my tag on it. I didn't do anything else to that side. There's my insert on the inside. Excuse me. This is the base layer that they provided. Again, in Hunkydory's version, all of those layering pieces would be on here, and you certainly, absolutely can do that. I just like getting more cards for my dollar. And in this case, I've used a piece of this for my background. And we had two nice borders on that bordering sheet. Oops, where did I get this? Someone special this Christmas. Oh, here they are. Thank you, honey. The piece on Earth came from here, and the smaller border came from here. Thanks, honey. And this label came from this sheet also, right here. Okay, so we've got that. Again, all I did was cover my card and put the borders on. It just doesn't need anything else with that beautiful dimensional work. I used the leftover piece of that and a tag on the inside. This is covered in some of my insert paper. You may not be able to see it on camera because it's a very faint pattern, but it is lined. Finally, here's another A2 card that's been created. And all I've done in this one is I still had some really nice shiny sky over here, so I covered my A2 in this shiny sky piece, and then I put my layers right on top of it and put glad tidings on it. It just didn't need anything else. It was really pretty. And I used another piece of this background to be my insert paper. This is glossy, so you might want to write on it with a Sharpie, but you certainly can write on that. Gorgeous. Okay. Here's one called Winter Wonderland. We've got Mama Owl and her babies there in the nest behind her. So pretty. Here's our layering sheet. Here's our cardstock. Now you'll notice this one does not have a side image, so we're going to get two cards out of the base. Plus, of course, we're going to use this beautiful owl off the double-sided papers. And we're going to use the back of those double-sided papers this time too. Oops. And here is our insert sheet. Let's see what we did with them. Keep these handy. Here's that beautiful side treatment from the double-sided paper. I took a 4x8 card. I covered it in silver mirror board. I added a slightly smaller image, cut this down just a tad to show my border all the way around. I used our acetate technique where I put the dots of the best glue ever on the back of my acetate and let them dry. And then I put that acetate down so that you don't have any acetate lines showing at all. Added Season's Greetings. That's it. On the inside. Now when you see those double borders, we tend to see gatefold cards when we see that. It doesn't have to be, but that's what we tend to see. So in this case, I've covered a 6x6 Hunkydory gatefold card using first one side of that, then the other side of that. Just for fun, because I still had a trim piece, I added a trim piece here. I attached my little label here that says Loving Christmas Wishes. Here's my Mama Owl and her babies all layered up in the center. Open it up and we have one of those large greetings on the inside, and there's our insert paper. I just think that's beautiful. This would be so great for either a man or a woman at Christmas, or family. You know me, I don't have to do fancy things to these cards. You just don't have to, because they kind of make themselves. But I couldn't help myself. I had to do it. So in this case, I took my one remaining layer, which is like 2/3. It was 2/3 of an image. And I took a 5x5 card. I covered that card using some of my background cardstock. I used the corner pieces that originally were with this base image that I used on the other card. I used those corners and brought them in on this one. Once I had cut my hole out of here, I cut a double ring. I used 2 different size rounds, and I cut this little narrow piece of mirror board. To the back of that mirror board, I attached my acetate, then I attached the whole thing to my front to hide my acetate behind the ring. On the inside, I matched this. I took the piece I cut out of here, out of this background, and I attached him to the back of my owl. Then I cut a slightly larger ring of Silver Mary, and I put behind that just to really make that owl sparkle. And I matched it all up to my window. You remember the technique I use for that. I take my image, I lay it here, I check and make sure it's right where I want it to be. I put my tape on the back, and then I close my cover to get it right where I want it, right in the center of my window. Added a little border here. I used a piece of the back of this paper to just have a nice complementary color for the inside of my card. I totally love this one. It took a few minutes to make, but isn't that fun? Oh, I loved it. So with this set, we got 2 out of the topper set plus 1 out of the double-sided paper, so a total of 3 from this set. This one's called a Christmas Choir. Got the children's choir singing outside the cathedral. Pretty. Wishing you peace, joy, and love this Christmas, and a couple nice border pieces, as well as some nice long runs of cut-off materials. Save those. Now you'll notice this has some really big pieces. Really big pieces. And because of that, I could have probably gotten 3, but I opted to make 2 cards out of this set. Here's my background. Another reason I made 2 is that I didn't have an extra image here to work with. I do love that background though. It's beautiful. They made up for it with the double-sided paper. Look at that beautiful image. And we got that nice red on the back. And we have our insert. Let's see what we did with it. Let's start with this one. I actually made a really big card out of this. I could have cut it down if I had chosen to do so. I just looked at that image and I thought, boy, we'd be cutting off some really nice things if I cut that down. So I decided to make one large A5 card out of that. So I took an A5 card, which is equivalent to half a sheet of Adorable Scoreable, and I covered my card with Gold Mary. Then I cut my image down just slightly to allow my border to show. I glittered the heck out of it because this one doesn't have a lot of layers to it. So I added glitter to my trees and to the roof and to the ground, and I thought that was really pretty. Then I added my sentiment out of our sentiment book. The best way to express Christmas this year is singing loud for all to hear. And I used my little sprigs. And then I added my acetate to the top using our dot technique. Let them dry, let your little glue dots out of your best glue ever dry, and then add it to your card. But I thought that was really, really pretty. And in this case, I did not, did I cover it? Yeah, I did cover it, I guess. I covered it with a piece of the back of this sheet and put a little border on it. Next, here's my 2 layered cards. First, we have the base layer covered with some of my layers. And all I've done in this case is turn that cardstock sideways and covered, in this case, this is an A7, which is 5x7 card. And I put my topper on it, I put my little sprigs in the corner, I added a little festive wishes. I'm not sure if this is out of the sentiments pack or if this is off the topper sheet. I'm not positive about that, but I thought it was really pretty. Lined it on the inside with our insert material. Done. Here's another one, and in this case I turned this border the opposite direction. Another 5x7 card, because these are large images, these on the cathedral. And now you'll notice that I didn't have the full background, but when you put it up against the card back, I thought it looked great. I used my other little border strip here behind before I put my base layer on. That also just kind of helped it look like it belonged. Added one of my long sentiments and a couple little sprigs just for fun. And I love the way this came out. This was all done on silver mirror board. And my background. That's it for that one. Next up we have the Christmas cottage. Here's our base layer. 3 nice sentiments, some nice borders. Here's our cardstock with a beautiful side treatment. You know what we're going to do with that. Here's our layering pieces. Here's our 2-sided paper. Look at that beautiful image. And I love the polka dots. Those are so versatile. I don't know how much I did with them this time, but I do love that print. And there's the insert paper. We'll start with a double-sided paper piece. Covered it's another one of those ones where I did an A5 card. I know you prefer the smaller ones, and I certainly could have cut this down. But why would you want to? Because that's just so pretty. Especially when you sparkle it all up with some nice glitter. My goodness, that's beautiful. Covered my A5 card in gold mirror board. Trimmed my topper slightly smaller. And I glittered the heck out of it to show off all that snow. That was really fun to do, by the way. Very, very fun. Added lots of glitter accents to this one. Added my little warmest wishes up on some foam tape. I kind of wanted this one to look like it was like the plaques you sometimes put at your driveway entrance. That's kind of what I was going for there. And this is out of the 2017 Sentiments book. And there's that polka dotted paper. Again, this is glossy, so not all pens will write on it, but certainly a Sharpie style marker or a felt tip marker will work in there. So pretty. Next up, and this one, I took the base layer and I used this, where's that background sheet? Yep, use this background. Now a lot of times I cut off these little just dots and things, but in this case I thought, I wonder if I can make those somewhat dimensional. And I wondered that lots of you bought these strawberry nouveau dots before, and I thought, I wonder if I'm putting that against bright red, if they'll come out red, and I'll let you be the judge. They're definitely red. So I added dimension to all these little dots up here with the strawberry and with the lime nouveau dots, and just put them over the red and green balls, and then everything else that had a dot, I used glue and glitter to just add some fun dimension up there. It was just fun to do. And down here you had lots of little red balls on this tree, so I added the Nouveau dots to the red balls to get some extra dimension out of those. That was just fun. There's our house in the center. Okay. And in this one, I've taken an A2 card, and I am using, yeah, you're right. I'm using this one. Cut it off, put my little tag up here, used my sprigs. Didn't do any more to it than that. Lined it, thought it was cute. In this one, I thought this was actually a little bit clever. I'll toot my own horn just a bit. I layered this image up, but it didn't have any background to the image. It was just the foreground. And I had a little tiny piece of this one that had been cut off. I slid this down and layered that on top of it, and I thought it was great. So it has the same background color as the others, but it's just a little tiny piece of paper in there. So it was kind of fun. Added some snowflakes, added my little sentiment, with love at Christmas and always, lined it, done. Now we're going to take a little break here because we're halfway through this card set. Yes, we're only halfway. That's 6 out of 12 topper sets. So we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back momentarily with part 2.